to Simpler. We are three pastors, husbands, and fathers on a journey to make life simpler by holding Jesus as the core for every belief and practice. This journey has shaped us to be more like Christ, freed us from the shame of failure, and encouraged us to a deeper love of our Lord and God. We invite you to join us in the discussions that have shaped and continue to shape our lives.
What I don't like is when it is referring to something specific and simple, and then it's changed. For example, if I said I'm going to grab a couple of breakfast burritos, how many is that?
2.
Yeah, right. But like everybody younger than you says that could be. Well, actually, Cammy does too. Like that could be 2 or 3 or 4.
Well, that's silly.
And so they're like, yeah, that's just how people use it.
Few.
So I asked my boys, and I have had this argument forever. They're like, well, yeah, it's because it's kind of a joke now. Mm-hmm. But I'm like, when's the last time you're like, oh, that's a cute couple? All 3 of them.
All 3 of them, yeah.
Like, well, that's not what we mean. I'm like, well,
it's not what the word means.
The consistency in me is like, that's what bothers me is when it's it has multiple meanings. Mm-hmm. I'm like, over something simple.
Well, Michelle and I had a conversation about language the other day because she said, I added quite a few things to the shopping list if you go to the store today. I was like, okay. And she goes, well, I don't know. She goes, I added 4 things. I don't know if that's quite a few. I was like, completely depends. Yeah. I was like, if somebody brings me a cake, I go, oh, thanks, you brought me a cake. If you bring me 4 cakes, I'm like, man, people brought me quite a few cakes.
Yeah.
You know? And I was like, it just depends.
Or how big was the grocery list to begin with? If it was just 2 items and she added 4.
Yeah, that's quite a few.
Exactly. Right. We've changed the shopping experience.
Right. And
I told her like an understandably debatable.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because it's relative.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So if I said to her, I told her, I was like, if I said to you, hey, I need you to run an errand for me on the way home today. Or if I said, I need you to run 4 errands, you'd be like, man, that's quite a few errands. Yeah. You know, it's all perspective.
Or if I said a couple errands, how many would you think I'm asking you to run?
2. Yeah.
Or 3 or 4.
Apparently. 12. Okay. So the question that I would ask for the people who don't feel like a couple is 2, or that it doesn't have to be, how big of a number can it get and it still be a couple?
Exactly.
Well, I know. There's no answer.
Can it be 12?
There's no answer. Well, and like the usage and other, like when you couple something together.
Yeah.
You don't take 3 things and put them together. It's called coupling. It's literally called a coupling because it's taking 2 things.
Yeah. When
there's no freaking context for more than 2 and anything else except for
exactly. That'd be, dude, I want them all to become car salesmen, and then when they get coupes in, they're like, well, how many doors? Is it 3 doors? Is it 4 doors? It's a coupe.
I hadn't thought about that. That's a good one. Yeah. That's a good one.
Oh, man.
That's
Words are awesome.
Words are awesome. There was somebody on a podcast recently talking about the cultural change of the word Nimrod and how, because he's a mighty man in the scripture, it was used that way for so long until Bugs Bunny. He was sarcastically calling Elmer Fudd a Nimrod. He was sarcastically being like, oh, what are you, a Nimrod? Like more of like, are you a mighty man?
Because he wasn't successful as a hunter?
Exactly. But apparently all the audience, being kids, thought Nimrod means you call somebody stupid. They didn't pick up on the sarcasm. And so that's how Nimrod culturally became more of a you're stupid type of phrase. Yeah.
Etymology is very interesting. Mm-hmm. And like just the change in language. I love it.
Which is why I think it's important to remember on a serious note that language is culturally defined.
Yeah.
So you can, I'll give this to my boys. Like if their entire generation uses the word couple as a different way, there's at some point it's worthless for me to like continue to argue the point.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I can write or preach in a specific meaning, but like I need to understand the cultural viewpoint.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so then it's funny, like for a long time, we've determined our morals based on language usage.
Yeah.
Yep. Deciding whether or not this is appropriate
or more seriously, like I think sometimes people are like, that's a good Christian or not a good Christian based on the words they use.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I had that happen a couple times in my life.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you said crap in a sermon.
It happens every time.
Every time.
I actually preached in a camp a few weeks ago. I apologized before I even started. Mm-hmm. I was like, listen, this is probably going to say something. I'm probably going to say something that
is going to upset you.
So what's funny is I was joking, and I actually told a story about how a kids camp director pulled me aside one night and was like, hey, you said something inappropriate tonight. And I'm thinking like, oh man, what did I say? Like, did I say sex? What did I say? He's like, you said stupid. And I was like, really?
That's
like,
stupid.
You're pulling me. I was like, that's stupid. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm telling this to the entire camp. And then no joke, like a day and a half later, an adult sponsor pulls aside one of the camp directors and said, hey, I didn't appreciate that you used the word stupid in this meeting with the kids. And I was like, wait a minute. So the camp director's telling me this. So that night, I was like, you shouldn't have told me that, because that night when I preached, everything was stupid. Because I cannot handle people who have a moralistic perspective of like their perspective of holiness or righteousness is based on somebody's language usage. That pisses me off.
Well, you don't know this yet because we haven't talked about it yet, but that's next week's episode.
Oh, sick.
Oh, cool.
So
I'll save it for next week's episode.
There we go.
So I already have that earmarked for next week's episode.
Oh, that's pretty
the tendency, the tendency for us to take the text from a moralistic perspective rather than a revelation of Christ.
Gosh.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Yeah. So that's next week.
These are great topics coming up.
Yep.
Yeah. I feel all this pressure because I'm like, oh, crud, we're recording today. What are we recording? I'm like, I better figure it out. So,
Well, we're not talking about any of those things today, Ryan. What are we talking about today?
well, today, I want to make a joke so badly today.
I'm here.
Yeah.
Today we are going to talk
Carl, you ruined our salad.
a couple of weeks ago, the Newsboys revealed, so Michael Tait, who used to be in DC Talk, went solo for a while and then was the head man for Newsboys for like 14 years.
Mm-hmm.
In January of this year, stepped down from that position, telling his bandmates that he just needed to get some things straightened out in his life. Well, it came out a couple of weeks ago that he had been engaging in homosexual behavior with some males that he had groomed throughout his career, had been addicted to drugs throughout his career and some other things. And in that same week, a buddy of mine called and said that a pastor that had really been an inspiration to him early on in his life had just basically stepped down from ministry because he had revealed a long-time affair and all this kind of stuff. So we see these things happen, right? And I want to address a couple of things about it. Like, first of all, the response that happened culturally to this admission.
Mm-hmm.
And then also want to address like why these things happen and how do we three as people who are in ministry and who are semi-public figures, at least in San Angelo, how do we guard so that these aren't who we become, right?
But Ryan.
Yeah, I know, Pierce. It's
But Ryan.
So here's the thing. I've seen, so Michael Tait, all this stuff became public. And then Michael Tait, a few days after it became public, put out a letter, June 10th. He put out a letter called My Confession. It's
Sounds
not
like a song.
Well, here's the thing. It's not a confession.
No.
And several people responded to it and are like, I'm so glad to see that he's, doing the right thing. What ticks me off is he's not doing the right thing. Like, he didn't own up to any of it. He got caught.
Mm-hmm.
And so now he's having a public response to being caught.
Yeah.
And we've talked about this kind of thing before, that we have people, even in our community, people that I've done ministry for 30 years. Micah, you nearly that long. Pierce, you've been doing it for 15 years. Like, we've all seen people in that span who don't own, they're not actually accountable for what they've done. Mm-hmm. They get caught and then they try to manage the fallout.
Exactly.
Right. And that really ticks me off. It ticks me off that his response to me is a response to being caught, not coming to the guys he was bandmates with for 14 years and saying like, listen, I haven't been honoring the Lord. Like, and now the band, their initial response when these allegations started coming out was, we don't want to hide this. We don't want it to be covered up. If anybody else knows other things, please, report it. Please make it public. So it's similar to, I used to really enjoy and read and listen to Ravi Zacharias. And then at the end of his ministry, all this stuff came out about what a false person he was. And, but the Ravi Zacharias International Ministries, their response to it was to hire an investigative team of attorneys.
Yeah.
And they said, we want to uncover every single thing because we don't want to be secretive about it.
Yeah.
So I do appreciate that the Newsboys did seem to have that response to it. I don't know a whole lot more about it than that. I don't know what they saw or didn't see in the course of their 14 years, but we're going to get into that too, because I speculate that they probably weren't as close with each other as they should have been.
Yeah.
Because if you're really doing life with people, I think you can't keep this secret.
That was a question mark for me.
Yeah.
And I understand. I don't know anything about their relationship. I mean, my first thought was, because I did see the Newsboys response. My first thought was like, it seems a little bit suspicious that you were there for so long together and you didn't see any inklings of it. Plus, I mentioned this to you guys earlier, like, I actually had heard about this a long time ago, like before he was even with the Newsboys, when he was doing solo stuff.
I hadn't, but
I'd heard the swirling rumors that he did coke, which is not surprising in the music world.
Yeah.
I'd also heard someone talk about someone they knew personally from the San Angelo area as a teenager being hit on by Michael Tait at an event. So like, how is it that I knew some rumors about this and
they didn't know
these guys? So I'm sure they knew rumors, but like, how do you have a relationship with someone for that long and not see something? Now it's possible that it was completely like a professional relationship and not a personal relationship at all. It could be like that he just shows up and does the music and then they never do life together at all. I can understand that's possible. So there was at least some question marks for me.
Well, and I want you to speak to that here in a second, because I do think that the relationship, I think having a relationship where you are doing life with one another, where you know the ins and outs of the other person, is a safeguard against these kinds of things, or at least will make you aware of it. It's not going to drag on for a decade and a half plus, you know? So here's his letter. He starts it off this way. He calls it My Confession. He says, recent reports of my reckless and destructive behavior, including drug and alcohol abuse and sexual activity, are sadly largely true. For some 2 decades, I used and abused cocaine, consumed far too much alcohol, and at times touched men in unwanted sensual ways. I am ashamed of my life choices and actions and make no excuses for them. I will simply call it what God calls it, sin. I don't blame anyone or anything but myself. While I might dispute certain details in the accusations against me, I do not dispute the substance of them. When I abruptly, so a couple of things, I don't even know that sentence is necessary. I dispute some of it. Like, he's trying to mitigate, I think,
this is
fallout.
he hired a publicist.
Yeah.
This is a legal thing.
Yeah. When I abruptly left Newsboys in January, I did so to get help. I was not healthy physically or spiritually and was tired of leading a double life. Okay, again, I call bullcrap, because if you really are, you go to the people you've been doing life with for 14 years and you say, listen, I need to tell you guys why I'm leaving. I need to tell you what's going on. Because what he did for them basically is he hung them out to dry as well. Like, you know, like, one of these days this will all blow up in your face. Screw you, you know? So I'm ashamed to admit that he goes, I spent 6 weeks at a treatment center in Utah receiving help that may have saved my life from ultimate destruction. So I have a lot of thoughts about treatment centers, and unless it was a treatment center that is pointing you to Christ, all right, whatever, right? Yeah. He goes, I've been clean and sober since, though I still have a lot of hard work ahead of me. I'm ashamed to admit that for years I have lied and deceived my family, my friends, my fans, and even misled my bandmates about aspects of my life. I was, for the most part, living 2 distinctly different lives. I was not the same person on stage Sunday night that I was at home on Monday. I was violating everything I was raised to believe by my God-fearing dad and mom about walking with Jesus, and was grieving the very God that I loved and sang about for most of my life. By his grace, I can say that for the past 6 months, I have lived a singular life, one of utter brokenness and total dependence on a loving and merciful God. I have hurt so many people. I have hurt so many people, because you would have owned up to it. I think you would have,
I'll say this and then you can keep reading so we can talk about it later, but like, I think one of the things you see in the scripture is that there's a matter of, like heart repentance that happens even when you're caught. Like, for example,
David.
Yeah. What I wasn't going to, I was going to say him as an example, like, I don't think you can make the accusation that someone's not authentic because they didn't respond until they got caught. Yeah. Because that would mean that David wasn't authentic.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But I do think that David's heart response, like his repentance of his heart is not David didn't go, well, you know, I didn't actually do this. I didn't actually personally kill him, Uriah. You know, he wasn't making excuses. It was just a heartfelt repentance. So it's different than what you see here.
And I've gone to counseling and I'm better now.
David wasn't concerned about himself at all.
No. against you and you only have I sinned, O God, right? He goes, I've hurt so many people in so many ways, and I will live with that shameful reality the rest of my life. I can only dream and pray for human forgiveness because I certainly don't deserve it. I've even accepted the thought that God may be the only one who ultimately and completely forgives me. Still, I want to say I'm sorry to everyone I've hurt.
Wait, back up a little bit. So read that sentence about the God forgiving him thing again.
He goes, I have even accepted the thought that God may be the only one who ultimately and completely forgives me. Saying that people might not. He says, still, I want to say I'm sorry to everyone I've hurt. I am truly sorry. It is my hope and prayer that all those I have hurt will receive healing, mercy, and hope from the merciful healer and hope giver. Even before this recent news became public, I had started on a path to health, healing, and wholeness, thanks to a small circle of clinical health professionals, loving family, caring friends, and wise counselors, all of whom saw my brokenness and surrounded me with love, grace, and prayer.
There's no spiritual influence in there.
No, and what I'm wondering is, where were these health professionals and family and friends and counselors? How come he wasn't addressing this? Like, if these are wise counselors, then they're saying, look, you've got to admit to where you've been, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know if I could like specify a time frame for that kind of David, for example. It's pretty heinous. Like, I don't know if it gets more heinous than that, right? I don't know if I could say a time frame, but you're looking in David's life, for example, you're looking at way less than 9 months.
Oh yeah.
Like let's call it 6, right?
Right.
Probably less than that, but like, let's call it max 6. Like, I just have a hard time thinking that you can live a life like that for 14 years.
And he says at the beginning, 2 decades. Yeah.
20 years. I have a hard time saying that could be your life for 20 years, and somehow you're proclaiming that you have a relationship with God.
Yeah. No way.
Like, where is the spirit in that?
Yeah. No way. He goes on to say, and this is a pretty famous quote that he utilizes here, sin is a terrible thing, taking us where we don't want to go, keeping us longer than we want to stay, and costing us more than we want to pay. I accept the consequences of my sin and am committed to continuing the hard work of repentance and healing work I will do quietly and privately away from the stage and the spotlight. To the extent my sinful behavior has caused anyone to lose respect or faith or trust in me, I understand, deserve, and accept that. But it crushes me to think that someone would lose or choose not to pursue faith and trust in Jesus because I've been a horrible representative of him, for he alone is ultimately the only hope for any of us.
I actually like that statement.
King David's prayer of repentance in Psalm 51 has been my prayer this year. Have mercy upon me, O God, according to your loving kindness. Blot out my transgressions. Wash me thoroughly from my iniquity and cleanse me from my sin. For I acknowledge my transgression. My sin is always before me. Create in me a new heart, O God, and renew a steadfast spirit in me. So that's his letter. And and again, he calls it my confession. I don't know. I mean, it's one of these things that when he's mentioning his healing or his progress, he mentions, being in therapy. He mentions clinical health professionals, loving family, caring friends. Listen, I love you guys. I love your families. If either of you ever came to me and said these kinds of things, you told me these kinds of things, I'm still going to be a loving and caring friend, but I'm exposing all of that to the light. Every bit of it.
Yeah, I'd be a loving and caring friend when I rip your nuts off.
Yeah, but you know what I mean? What people want to do is, people have this tendency to no, let's, because he says, I'm going to do all of this in private. Okay, that was kind of the problem, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That you were keeping all this stuff in private.
Yeah, I think that, all right, let's flip it for a second and I have a thought, right?
Yeah, lay it on us.
So let's flip it. What if what he means by that is actually I'm not gonna try to become someone public anymore. You know what I mean? He's saying basically I'm not gonna I'm with you. Why do you do this in private for so long? And now you're well, I'm just gonna step back and deal with it in private. It's your point's correct. This should be out in the public. You're a public figure who actually, he's acknowledging this, has an opportunity to probably make some people question faith.
Yep.
Because of his actions, this dude's proclaiming to represent Jesus.
Yep.
So that's a fair point. Let's flip it on its head. Normally I'm just which I'm still pissed, and we'll continue to rail on him. But and maybe this is the change that us three have been talking about lately. maybe more specifically me than you guys, but like I don't think this dude's a false preacher, false teacher, right? I think he misrepresents Jesus, but I mean, he doesn't seem like he's
might not actually be a follower of Christ, to your point a moment ago.
So what I was going to say is like, what I need to say now is like, my heart for this dude is to know Jesus.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that I'm not going to rail on him because you were in a public position, and I'm going to bring some people up in a second. I don't think he's the only one. You brought up Robbie. So like, I think we have to continue to have a heavy hand towards these kind of people.
Well, who's the guy in Dallas?
Gateway guy.
Yeah.
The founder of Gateway Church.
Yeah. So, years ago, like 20 years ago, he sexually assaulted a girl who at that time was 12 or something like that. It was like 20 years ago. And the stuff that just came out the same week as all this Michael Tait stuff was that the church leadership at the time knew about it.
Oh, that's even worse.
They knew about it, and they helped him cover it up.
Oh,
so they were more interested in preserving his reputation and the church reputation than they were honoring Christ.
Yeah.
That's more disgusting than the story you told us about the bathroom at Cold Smoke.
Yeah.
That's really disgusting, because that means that those people care more about the brand of their ministry than they do about Jesus.
Yeah. Yep. Well, but it keeps happening, right? Because a decade ago, right after we were at the best pastors conference we've ever been to, Boswell, and
the
what was that
doxology and theology.
Yeah. Best pastors conference, best worship conference I think I've ever been to. It was so good. Well, I really enjoyed Moody as well. So those two sit at the top of my list. But
I think Moody's a little higher for me because it was actually a pastors conference, because that one was like a worship. Worship conference. They
were both good. But there was a pastor.
It also hurts me because I showed up and I looked like every other worship leader there, and I don't like that. I don't.
You're like, dang it!
It radically changed how I dressed after that one. It's like, I'm not going to be that guy.
Yeah, but there was a pastor and a worship pastor or whatever that was at that event that it came out like a year later that they had covered up some sexual stuff up north. I can't remember off the top of my head, but again, the church was complicit in helping to cover it up. Anyway, you were saying this kind of stuff, these people who are in the spotlight.
Yeah, they deserve to be railed on. Like, you have to your point, you have to like expose everything. And and I don't mean that from like a personal stance to Michael Tait. I'm just saying, like, that's what Ravi, like, you have a public impact. I'll say it this way. I think the wisest thing to do in Ravi's case was what his, like, the ministry that he was associated with did, was like, we're going to expose the entire thing. I think that's the wise thing to do, because what ultimately is on the line is the gospel. Yep. And so in my mind, like, these things this is not about Michael Tait. Right. Screw Michael Tait. Like go deal with your stuff in private, and hopefully you don't use your private when you're dealing with stuff in private. Like go deal with stuff on your own. Fine. But what's not at stake here is Michael Tait's reputation. Right. What's at stake here is Jesus. Yeah. And if people lose sight that the goal is Jesus in these things, what they're going to do is they're going to be like, oh, we can't be too mean to Michael Tait. He's really suffering. Yeah. Like what? Yeah. Like, why the hell would I care if he's suffering or not? You did that to yourself. Like, it doesn't mean that, like, I don't have a heart for him to know Jesus. Yeah. But you did it. Yeah. You did it. You suffer the consequences of it. And that's what people don't want to like deal with, is like, people have to suffer the consequences for this.
Let me ask you this question. So, because you brought up a good point that, like, David's response to Nathan coming to him and saying, hey, you're the guy, right? You did this, you sinned. And then David had an appropriate response. Does it change your position on that at all, comparing kind of like talking about Tait, and maybe this letter is his response to that? Does it change anything at all that he quit the band in January? So, like, he was already aware in January of his guilt. David didn't seem to be processing his guilt until Nathan said something. Does that make sense? So, like, Tait already knew he was guilty. Tait already knew he was, like, wrong. Yeah. And in that case,
wait, do you mean like he was aware? Are you saying David wasn't aware of his sin?
I'm saying that, like, maybe, well, I don't know that, obviously he was aware of it because he tried to hide it, but like, not confronted with the God of it.
So actually, I think this is your question. David doesn't seem to come to grips with the reality of his offense against God.
Yeah.
Until Nathan.
Yeah.
Or the intensity of it.
Yeah.
To your point, he obviously knows he's done something wrong because he tries to hide it, right? That you could make a case. The text doesn't say, you could make a case that this is like an elementary school kid who's like stolen a piece of gum from the convenience store back that kind of thing, right? It's like in their mind, they're like, I don't want to get in trouble from the parents. Like David's like, I don't want the country to like see what I've done. Like it could be a reputation thing. Like we don't know what it is. But when Nathan confronts him, that's when he goes, oh my goodness,
everything changes.
I've sinned against God, right? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah. So I'm just curious, like, is it, I mean, I suppose it's possible. I don't know that we can know the heart of a man, right? So, okay, I'll contend. It's possible Michael Tait didn't catch the gravity of this until it became public and it was on every screen. On Instagram, they are making all sorts of memes about Michael Tait. Have you seen some of those?
I haven't yet, no.
Tons.
I bet.
Like a hot dog vendor eating a hot dog and saying Michael Tait backstage, like this kind of stuff,
gosh.
right?
Oh man,
I know. So they're doing all these things, and I'm still wondering if his response isn't to try to mitigate that.
There has to be. It has to be some.
So David's response isn't mitigation. He's not trying to manage the situation. To me, it feels like Michael Tait's trying to manage the situation.
100%.
Yeah.
I don't know how there's not a publicist involved in that.
Yeah.
That response, right?
Yeah.
100%. That's he doesn't. He seems to still be concerned about him.
Yeah.
Let me make one distinction with like now versus David. David says in Psalm 51, God, don't take your spirit from me.
Yeah.
The indwelling of the spirit didn't happen. David was aware of the spirit because the spirit comes on David on and off, but like probably more consistently than maybe most people at his time, maybe minus some of the prophets.
Implication, right, is the king before him, King Saul, that the spirit of God was on Saul, and there came a point that God removed the spirit from him. So he's already seen that modeled. Like, hey, I've seen your spirit on somebody, and then
go away. That's true. That's true. But that's not the case.
And it was because of Saul's sin that the spirit was removed.
Yeah. That's fair. I hadn't thought about that. Different than now.
Yeah.
Indwelling of the spirit now, which is why I have a hard time
believing that he was actually
again. I'm saying I have a hard time. I'm not making a definitive statement again because I can't make a like standard of time. Like how long can someone like live in perpetual sin like that and not be concerned about it? But the difference is, I think the reason I have a hard time is because you're telling me that the spirit was there for 20 years, and you didn't feel any kind of like overwhelming guilt. It's at least a question mark for me, right?
For sure.
Ravi, it becomes a question mark for me.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%.
This dude is so freaking intelligent, Ravi Zacharias.
Yep.
That I think he could be a theologian because there are theologians that don't believe in Jesus.
Yep.
I've seen some of the commentaries, right? I've read through some of them. I think that I've said this before to you guys, like when Ken Shepard, the guy that discipled and mentored my dad, an amazing guy. What's funny is I think I probably bend a little more towards Ken than I do my dad in terms of like how he deals with people. I think it's just a personality difference. But Ken preached at my ordination service when I was leading worship at my dad's church.
Awesome.
And he looked at me. I'm sitting in the front row, and he looks. He's got a lazy eye, so he's looking at me, but he's also looking like way over there. So I think he's looking at me. So he's like staring at me, and he goes, "It's the most chilling thing I think anybody's ever said to me." He goes, "There's enough talent sitting here in this front row for you to fake it for the rest of your life." He said, "Don't fake it." And in that moment, I was like the weight of that is he recognized something that I think is in these situations, right? Like Ravi, intelligent enough,
genius guy,
to fake it his entire life, right? The difference is I have the spirit. There have been times you mentioned earlier, Ryan, like that you were a little heavy-handed with someone recently, and you realized you shouldn't have been. Like those things kill me. Like when I do something like that, when I'm like a little more heavy-handed than I should be, or like I don't treat someone well, it like weighs on me.
Yeah.
That's not me. That's the Spirit.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Like, where is that?
Yeah.
That's me being heavy-handed with someone. You're sticking your hot dog in little boys. Like,
Yeah.
like, you know what I'm saying? I'm not trying to be vulgar. I'm just saying, like, how is that not something that is way more intense than...
Absolutely.
You're grooming boys and you're molesting boys and you're doing cocaine and probably all of that
Let's scratch the cocaine.
But all of that's probably intertwined. It's probably part of the whole thing.
I just don't want to, I think what I don't want to do is include something that is debatable in terms of how we view it as sin.
Yeah. I mean, the sexual assault
the sex stuff we can talk about all day long.
Absolutely.
Easy. And you're doing these things.
I'm not trying to get people off with cocaine. I'm just saying, like, I don't want to muddy the.
No, the line's very, very clear with the sexual sin. And so you're doing these things, and you're still getting up and saying that you're proclaiming Jesus.
Yeah,
that's bullcrap. So here's the other thing. So back to bringing these things into the light, right? Anybody who is,
I want to be in the light. This he's in the light. I want to shine like the stars in the heavens.
Nice DC talk.
Yeah.
Anybody who brings. I am always skeptical of the people who don't own it until they're caught. I just am.
Yeah.
Partly because of what I grew up in my home. So,
that would be you would say like an anecdotal experiential thing for you.
For me,
you wouldn't make that as like we should be leery of people. You can't do that because of David,
right? Yeah. But for me,
it's a fair thought.
I'm a little biased in this, and I'm admitting my bias. But my dad never owned up to any of his affairs, right? Like my dad got caught, and then he was like, "Well, whatever," made his excuses, with his tiny feet.
I was like, "Well, she saw my little feet and felt bad for me."
But
they say about guys with small feet, they wear small shoes.
Yeah, there you go.
So, but John chapter 3, this is the text that comes to mind for this kind of a situation. It says, "And this is the judgment, that light has come into the world, and people love the darkness rather than light because their works were evil. Everyone who does wicked things hates the light and doesn't come into the light so that his works would not be exposed. Whoever does what is true comes into the light so it may be clearly seen that his works have been carried out by God." So I think that like people who are avoiding the light, like who don't bring this into the light, do so because they don't want it to be seen, right? And Christians, to your point, when Christians are confronted with their sin, they bring it into the light and they expose it because they want to show that the work is of God. And some people are going to read the Michael Tait letter and go, "Oh, it's super sincere." And
I don't actually think that's I think that's fine to think that. I don't think that's the question.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter if it's sincere or not, because it's not a concern for Jesus. It's a concern for Michael Tait.
Yeah.
And I think you could be sincere in your concern for yourself.
Yeah.
So sincerity, I don't think is the measure here.
Yeah. Good point. Yeah. It feels to me.
I can be incredibly sincere in like blasting somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean it's the right thing to do.
Right. Well, I will say that the way that it feels to me is it smacks of falsehood to me. It smacks of, like you've already said, that he's had a publicist or something kind of help him write these things.
I would say that's like a 99% situation. I also don't think it I don't let's pretend for a moment that it is sincere.
Yeah.
That the publicist helped him, but this is like actually sincere.
And he's wanting to walk with the Lord.
I still think it's a dumb measure. I don't think whether it's false or sincere is the measure. I still don't. I think it's what you mean by false is, here's what this made me think. You read, and I have realized more and more lately how I am bent this way. I think that I am bent like
Beckham.
Well, bent like Beckham, like what are they called? Like Tony Robbins, these guys where it's like, it's pretty easy for me to sway people how I want them to be swayed. This was as someone who like thinks that way, this is what this feels like to me.
Manipulation.
Is that he had an intention, even if it wasn't intended to manipulate, like trying to gain something, it is intentionally written in a way to make people to soften people's response towards the severity of what he did. This is about Michael Tait. This is not about, so that's why what you're saying falsehood, I think is what I'm agreeing with you. I think I'm calling BS, not falsehood in terms of the letter, but falsehood in terms of like, this dude doesn't really give a crap about Jesus.
Yeah.
He doesn't. I do like the statement, whatever he said, like I don't want people to think wrongly about Jesus because of what I've done. Like I appreciate that being part of the statement, but that's not the whole, like he should have just written that statement and then been like, I screwed up. I'm sorry. And then left it alone. That would be the way to go. But the whole letter was about softening the response towards Michael Tait, which apparently didn't help if they're doing those videos
all
on
that,
Instagram. But honestly, that's what you get, right?
Yeah.
That's what you deserve.
Well, and what I feel badly about is all these 20 years. You're talking about 20 years.
Yeah.
So the number of kids,
And I think it's longer than that.
probably so.
Because when I first heard about it, it was more than 20 years ago.
Well, here's what I was going to say. Like, people tend to admit to enough to look sorry. People hardly ever admit to it all.
Yeah.
So, and I've seen this over 30 years of doing counseling with people or whatever. So usually what people admit to is they'll say, oh yeah, like I totally had an affair, you know, and it was, it didn't last super long. But then what you find out about later is there were 3 affairs before it. So they admit to enough to look contrite.
Right.
But who knows how many, who knows how many young men's lives have been so wrecked because of this treatment of this guy who's supposed to represent Jesus. Like this isn't something that they just kind of slough off and don't feel ever again in their hearts. Like this will shape their families. This will shape like they were abused. They were like, and like, I don't see any of that in the letter. Like, man, I have wrecked people.
Right. That's what I mean.
Like,
This is about Michael Tait.
Yeah. Like I have crushed people. Like I have wounded them. Like these are the things that people in their adult years catch onto at some point and go, man, like I need counseling. Like my heart's not okay.
Yeah.
Like you have now God's grace is amazing and there's so much healing that can be done.
Yeah.
But there shouldn't need to be healing in these kids' lives.
Yeah.
Because that shouldn't have ever happened.
Right.
You were an asshole. You were a wicked person.
Yeah.
And here's the other thing, and you know this, like part of the reason I don't like comparing modern day Christians or Tait, who's saying he is, to Old Testament saints is for the exact point that you made a moment ago, is that the Spirit wasn't ever given to somebody like indefinitely. It came and went. So the Spirit isn't given in the Old Testament as a seal. The Spirit was given, Jesus says to the disciples, unless I go, he goes, if I go, it's better for you because then the Spirit can come and the Spirit's job is to teach you into all truth and guide you into all righteousness and transform you from glory to glory. Like there was an intent for the Spirit post the resurrection that didn't exist pre-resurrection.
Exactly.
And so David was an idiot and he sinned and he was wicked, right? Even the Bible says he was a man after God's own heart, except in this area where he was wicked.
Yeah.
And because of his sin, his son died. Because of his sin and his bloodshed, he wasn't allowed to build the temple for the Lord. Like there were all these consequences, right? In his life. And so like,
no matter your sincerity of sorriness, you still suffer the consequences of what you do, period.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And these kids, like, who over 20-something years are now, many of them adults, like, it has shaped them. And, like, you robbed them.
Yeah.
You robbed these kids of healthy childhoods and life and like where you should have shown them love and grace, where you should have been a beacon of the hope of Jesus Christ to them. You manipulate them and you prey upon their desire to be loved by somebody. Maybe they've already been abused before. They're seeking some sort of a father figure or a mature person who will show them grace and show them love and show them care. And there's a way to do that in Christ that's God honoring and Christ exalting. And he like crapped all over that. Like and
it's going to make it harder. Like we would all agree that there's no question that those things can be remedied. Like it can,
those kids can be healed.
Yes, those kids can come to a place where that does not affect them. But it's like, I think it's similar to what you talk about in your journey through life of what you dealt with as a kid. Like, it's not like those things don't exist in your head.
Right.
What they don't do now is they don't affect you. They don't in the way that like rules your life, right?
Right.
So it doesn't mean that those things go away. So maybe to your point about what he did to them is like, he, at the least, he created something that will forever live in the back of their minds that will create tension in areas of life there shouldn't be tension in.
Exactly.
Problem. Like, it's just, there's part of me that wonders, like, maybe as Christians, we should be a little more heavy-handed with this kind of stuff.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'm so tired. We've talked about this, I know, multiple times. I'm not interested in revisiting it. But just to address it quickly, I'm so tired of the people saying, yeah, but think about all the good he did.
No.
Think about all the, like, I'm so tired of that.
Yeah.
I'm so tired of people being willing to throw the sin under the rug for the sake of the nice things that they did. Mm-hmm. Bear in mind, the nice things that they did as a venue by which they could perpetrate their sin.
Exactly.
100%.
Like, that's all it was.
Yeah, and all the scenarios you're talking about, like Ravi, that's the case.
Yeah.
He started he invested into the massage parlor, and he would tell these young girls, like, you're my reward for how good I've been, or how righteous I've been, or something like that.
Well, there was a young lady that he paid her rent. He got her an apartment, and he said, and your sexual favors to me are God's reward for me being a blessing to you. Like, and so he's using his ministry as the venue by which he perpetrates these heinous things against God and people.
Right.
And it pisses me off.
I mean, I can name some more. Like, there's a dude, I think his name is Jeff Johnson, was a worship leader in Austin. Traveled for a long time on the road. I never met him, but like
Ivy as well. Remember?
Oh, wait. Sorry. Maybe that's who I'm thinking of.
Used to be at the big church there.
Oh, yeah. I know what you're talking about.
Aaron Ivy?
Yes. Yeah.
That's it. My bad.
Cool.
I don't know who I was thinking of.
Jeff Johnson's also a worship leader, but
not Jeff Johnson. Aaron Ivy.
Yeah.
My bad. Sorry, Jeff.
But yeah, like same thing.
Yeah,
and it was decades.
Yeah.
And there were people that he would bring into his ministry, kids he would bring into his ministry to help him.
Yes.
So that he could rape them.
Yep.
And manipulate them.
Right.
Now, I don't want to end this conversation here. So what I want to do is I want to have the conversation of what are safeguards against this kind of stuff? Now, I'm going to throw the first one out because I feel like it's the most obvious one, and Mike has already touched on it twice. I think the first safeguard is you actually have to be a follower of Jesus.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because
100%.
Because I would agree with you.
Can we rephrase the question?
Yeah.
I'm not sure I like that being what people think about.
No.
I'm not sure that the goal should be to safeguard against this.
No.
Right? I think the goal,
because then it implies that people are like, oh, right on the precipice of it all the time.
Correct.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, so it's not putting up a guardrail at the Grand Canyon. Like, what kind of things indicate that, like, how do we say it then?
Yep. I gotcha. So like,
we're not trying to put up a guardrail because people are in the habit of leaping into the Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
So why isn't this ever going to be us? Let's face it that way.
No. Yeah, I think so. Maybe to say it differently, what's different about someone whose life is bent on glorifying Jesus?
Yes.
Right.
First of all, they actually are in relationship with Christ.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, because what we would argue is if you're actually in relationship with Christ, if your aim is actually to glorify God, these things don't happen.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Really?
Yeah, because David. I think that.
I still think different situations.
Wait, what do you mean these things?
I think modern day Christian is different than David.
No. Like, what do you mean these things?
I don't think you're molesting boys.
Do you mean 20 years? Okay, that might be fair, but I'm just saying, like, I think we need to specify these things because, like, we've said a lot of different things. Like, what are these things?
All
like,
right.
The majority of my issue with all the ones we've said so far is how they've been handled, not the specific acts, right? So I would have a really hard time with someone molesting a young boy as a man. Here's why I'm saying maybe,
and
right?
being a Christian.
What we're not acknowledging is that there have been many cultures prior to the United States where that was very normative, where
Yep.
generals would receive as rewards little boys for war.
Yeah.
What I'm also acknowledging is that there's many cultures outside of our culture here where it's very normative for an older man to marry a younger girl, right?
Yeah.
So like, that's what I'm saying is I don't want to use a moral standard that is not a correct moral. That's what I'm saying. I think we have to be careful with that. That's why I don't want to. I think that's why I don't want to phrase the question of how do we guard, because then you have to set up a moral.
Well, it's the wrong question anyway, because it's.
So when I say these things, I think we flip it and go,
what does a man who's committed to the Lord look like?
And I think it's actually, we shouldn't. Your hope is that those things don't exist. So let's do something. Let's do something less heinous.
Well, go ahead.
Adultery.
Yes.
Right. I was gonna give an example, and I think this will kind of go the direction you want with your question that you're trying to ask. Less heinous adultery. You're not talking about something that's like illegal or is gonna like wreck a young kid's life. It's still not okay, obviously. Like, it's still gonna wreck people's lives, but less heinous in that regards. There's a dude named Steve Fee who used to be, well, is now still a worship leader, but was like really, really big in, I don't know, early 2000s, like before like 2005, 2010, in that era. I actually loved his stuff. It was really good. He, a few years into like kind of blowing up, becoming this big thing, stepped back from being a worship leader, stepped back from ministry, and said, I'm addicted to porn.
Okay.
And I need to like step back, or acknowledged it. And then it came out a few months later that it wasn't actually porn. It probably was a porn addiction too, but that he was actually having an affair with the wife of one of his band members.
Golly.
And so I think he was
admitted to the lesser thing.
Yep.
So look,
right. Which, And so, but what he did is he literally stepped back from ministry, acknowledged it. And his church rallied around him, dealt with it, removed him from his positions. And he literally just was part of the church, as they like helped him work through this for years. Like, you just didn't hear about Steve Fee for a long time. And then all of a sudden, I don't know, it was a while, like maybe 8 years, 10 years later, Steve Fee's coming back. So this is what I mean is that I don't want to gauge Steve Fee based on the fact that he had an affair.
Yeah.
That's what I'm like guarding against in the conversation, is that I don't want people to immediately think that the sin is the measure, because I think that's the wrong measure.
Well,
it's the heart for Jesus that guards you from the sin. And it's the heart for Jesus that, if you find yourself in that moment of sin, dictates what the future looks like, what the direction looks like.
Yeah, but I would argue about Steve Fee, I think you would too, that he clearly was not, his heart wasn't for Jesus in those things.
That's not what I'm talking about.
Okay.
I think we're talking about two different things.
All right.
Because what you said earlier is you'd have a problem with a Christian doing these things, like someone who has a spirit.
Yeah, okay.
That's way too far for me. Like, you would have to spend hours convincing me that's true.
So let's back up then. Steve Fee, let's assume he was a believer when all that went down, right? Steve Fee was not bent in that moment upon honoring the Lord.
Correct.
Yeah.
I would be very uncomfortable. Here's my point.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be a little harsh with this. I am very uncomfortable with your implication that the sin dictates the question mark about the salvation.
Okay.
I'm incredibly uncomfortable with that.
Okay.
Like, I don't know when that's going to be a scenario you'd be able to like say this is the case. I don't even know why that you'd even think that.
Yeah.
Because then you're having to measure sin, right? Now now Ryan Dalgliesh is saying this sin actually fits in this category, but this sin doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's back up and say that anyone behaving in any of these kinds of things is not in that moment submitting to the Lord.
100%.
Yeah. You're not walking by the Spirit.
Here's where I think you're trying to go.
Yeah.
All three of us, we would actually, if someone, well, it'd be how they handled it. But like, if we found out someone was having an affair and we confronted them, it would be you usually who does that. But like, you would come to us and go, based on this person's response, I either like, yeah, this person has put their faith in Jesus, or they haven't. There would be question marks for you based on their response, right?
Sure.
But I can't imagine you would walk up to us and be like, oh, so-and-so had an affair, they must not have been a Christian.
No, I wouldn't. But you're right. I would say either they don't know Jesus or they're not walking with him. Those are the possibilities.
Yeah, I just don't know why. What I'm saying is, like, I don't know why that's the beginning of the conversation.
About whether or not they know Jesus?
Why say that, right? Because the goal is them know Jesus.
Yeah.
So what I'm asking is, I guess, why is your first instinct, like that you even care in a situation where you're going to deal with it, right?
Yeah.
Where you ask the question first, well, they're either not a Christian or they're not submitting to Jesus. Okay, duh.
Yeah.
But like, why? Like, why would you not confront the situation and then go, I don't think they're a believer, or I think they are? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think that it might seem like a minute detail, but like the difference is how you approach the person.
Okay, go. Give me an
how you
example.
approach the situation. So like, let's say, let's put it harshly. So it's like someone close to us, that like one of our close friends we find out has been having an affair for like the last year. Right? Yeah. We didn't know about it. We didn't see anything. You find out about it. And then it's someone very close to you.
Yeah.
I don't think it's someone who, let's say it's someone who you have like
spent time with,
you've said great things about, they're growing, all these things. I don't think that's your response to them. I don't think you're going to tell us approaching that situation where you confront them, well, they're either not a believer or they are not submitted to Jesus. I think you just go confront the situation and find out from there. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
The reason I think it makes a difference is because there's still this sense of setting up this moral standard before Jesus. Does that make sense?
No, say it again.
If the question you have to ask before you confront the situation is they're either not a Christian or they're not submitted to Jesus, which are both very obvious things. If you have to ask that question, it seems to me like you're trying to create some kind of like standard of almost like justification of why that happened.
Well, I mean, okay, so maybe it's not about asking the question, but one of those two things is the reality, right?
Yeah. Sure, but yes, that's why I'm saying duh.
Yeah,
but like,
yeah.
I think what I'm saying is the reason you ask the question feels to me like you're trying to create some kind of justification for the situation instead of dealing with the situation and then receiving.
So I'm trying to figure out why the situation happened.
Like you're trying to say, here's almost like you're more comfortable going into the situation saying, well, this is a justification for why that happened. Like you're trying to answer instead of just saying, what I care about is whether this person knows Jesus or not.
Yeah.
Right. So let me give an example in the Michael Tait case. Let's say I was like kind of close to Michael Tait.
Yeah. Cool.
How Micah would handle it. I literally might beat the crap out of him or kick him. Like I might do that.
Yeah.
Because you, to your point earlier, wreck some people's lives. Yeah. But then I'm going to say like, can we talk about Jesus? Right.
Yeah, right.
That's Micah. Not everybody's going to do that. That's Micah doing that.
Right.
I'm not walking in trying to justify it at all. Right. I'm
not trying to justify the behavior.
Then why ask the question? Not justify the behavior, justify the situation. Right. So you're almost like saying, It feels like, and I'm only going this direction because I think it's important in the conversation that people hear the question you're asking about moving forward. It still feels like the conversation is wrapped around the sin,
okay,
rather than wrapped around Jesus.
Yeah,
that's what it feels like to me.
Okay,
because I can't think of other sins where we would approach it, or you would approach it the same way.
Yeah, like what? Give me an example.
Like there was a teenager at camp that stole something from the gift shop at Falls Creek and lied about it. I can't imagine your first response. Well, they either don't know Jesus or they.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Like that's not. You're not asking that question up front.
So
you're almost like making those
having an emotional response to the weight of the sin, the impact that the sin has on culture.
Yes.
And addressing it differently because of the implied or actual impact.
Here's why I think it makes a difference. If what people hear from their pastors is what we ultimately care about is that you know and honor Jesus with your life.
Yeah.
That's most important.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of people, and maybe this is a similar situation with David because Nathan comes and confronts him. We'll call Nathan the pastor in this situation. Yeah. I think there's a lot of people who try to avoid sin because they're afraid of what their pastor's going to say. Right. They're afraid of how their pastor's going to view them.
Rather than a perspective of, I want to glorify God with my life.
If they knew that the pastor's perspective, the leadership or the spiritual influence in their life, even if it's not like someone in their life, was our goal is for you to know and honor Jesus.
Yeah.
When they are approached with a situation of temptation and like adultery or something, what if the perspective was, I'm not going to try to hide this because I kind of want it, right? So what we're not saying is there's not a desire for sexual, like sexuality in that regards. That's dishonoring. Like we're all capable of sexual sin like that.
Sure.
What I think a lot of people are doing is they're trying to guard against it because they're afraid of what other people are going to say or how other pastors or spiritual leadership is going to view it. Instead of saying, man, what I really am ultimately caring about is whether Jesus is reflected in my life
Yeah,
well.
so it goes back to our conversation about like that we've had through the years about parents need to quit telling their kids don't have sex because it's wrong.
Yes.
And start approaching it from the perspective of glorify God and
Yes.
everything.
Yes.
And then that takes care of the other side.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's kind of, I don't think that's actually what you mean, but I think that's how it comes across to people.
Your duh comment, like, I mean, it is a given, right? It's one of those two things. This is a person who doesn't know Jesus.
But they weren't honoring him.
Or they're just not honoring him. My process is still, because I'm concerned about their salvation, I'm trying to, as I'm talking to them, listen to what they say to figure out that.
100%.
You know what I mean?
I think it's the beginning.
Yeah.
That is my question mark.
Or at least the way that I stated it.
Yeah, because again, I don't really, that's not what you're.
No.
Well, all I'm saying is the reason I brought it up is I think how that comes across, which I think is pretty normative for people and how they view pastors, is they think pastors are these like super spiritual people who have it all together, and they don't. Yeah. And so what they don't want is for a pastor to find out about the stuff they're doing, because then they feel like their character's the wrong word, their reputation is slighted because of how someone views them. Yeah. What if they knew that their pastor's ultimate concern for them is that they glorify and honor Jesus? And sometimes what that means is going to be a heavy hand. If you've dishonored Jesus with your life, there's going to be a heavy hand because you're a freaking idiot and you need to honor Jesus. Yeah. But not because it's a slight on their reputation. Yeah. Because it's a slight at the reputation of Jesus.
Because you represent Jesus. Yeah, yeah. And that's absolutely, I mean, how I approach things. Right. Because my aim is, now, to that point, and you're making, I think, the point for me, which I love. But to that point, we tend to look at guys like Ravi Zacharias or Michael Tait or the pastor from Dallas or whatever, Aaron Ivey. We look at these things that are really public, these people who had large ministries, these people who had large reaches, and we tend to put them in a different category than we do the lay person who owns a small business in town. Yes. And the outrage that we feel about Aaron Ivey and Michael Tait and the dishonor they've done to the name of Jesus is how we should feel outraged about the things in our lives that don't honor Jesus. Yes. But we put them in different categories because they're a public figure and we're not. Rather than, and that goes back to what the point you're trying to make, Micah, rather than going, yes, but the problem isn't that they were a public figure. The problem is that they dishonor the reputation of Christ. Yes. Yeah. And you, in your small sphere, have dishonored the reputation of Christ. So the affront is the same. Yes. Even though the reach of it is maybe different.
Yeah. Yeah. I think sometimes people forget too, like how stupid it is to think that someone's impact on the world is based on their like popularity. Jesus like wrecked the world with the gospel, not by taking the rock stars in his culture, maybe minus Paul later, but like he took a bunch of dudes that didn't make the cut. Yeah. Culturally.
For that expressed purpose to show that it wasn't about them.
Because the power of the gospel rests in the hands of the Spirit, not in someone's popularity or how well known they are. Like that's a dumb perspective to have. And if only so-and-so could get saved, they could do so much for the gospel. Well, like the Spirit's like different power for those people than it is for people who aren't known.
If Brad Pitt would just come to know the Lord or whatever, you know, like, but here's the thing, like
Billy Graham getting saved at a tent revival and then nobody knew Billy Graham.
Yeah. But I think one of the issues that we have is we have this mindset, right? First of all, that our sin is different. Like my affair doesn't have the same impact as Michael Tait's thing that he's been doing for 20 years. And people weigh those things differently rather than saying both of these are an affront against the gospel. Yeah. The other thing that I think that we do wrongly, and I don't think this is what you're saying, but I just want to clarify. Let me say that differently. I know this isn't what you were saying.
I think it's, clarify.
But I think like, because you said, you know, that there will be people who think that their pastor is, everything's good for them and look, they're going to look down on me or whatever. So throw the pastor out for a minute. Let's just say it's a really godly friend of theirs, right? Somebody who's just walking faithfully with the Lord. They're going to have that same tension.
Sure.
And so that's a biblical model, right? That we see, like we see that biblical model. We just read it in John, like that there are people who are walking in the darkness. They don't want to come into the light because then those things will be exposed. We talked about it with Elijah, and he's living with the widowed woman and her son dies. And she goes, "Did you come to remind me of my sin?" Yeah. And literally her son died. It wasn't, you know what I mean? So there's that exists, that I don't know, that gap exists. So if you have come to the place where you recognize you're walking in sin and you want to go to somebody who is not walking in sin, I think you're going to feel that tension anyway.
Agreed. There will be tension. The hope is that the tension's not based on you worrying about your reputation, to be clear.
Yeah.
The tension's like, because I'm not honoring Jesus with my life.
Yeah. But I think there's that tension that's going to exist. The other thing that I think is true is, and we've all talked about this, we all actually believe it is possible to walk by the power of the Spirit.
Yes.
So while you said a moment ago, anyone's capable of sexual sin, I don't think that someone walking faithfully with the Spirit is going to.
Agreed. I think, yes, because he says in Galatians 5:16, walk by the Spirit and you won't gratify the desires of the flesh.
Right.
The acknowledgement, which I think you'll agree with this, is not, it doesn't seem to be a perpetual state. He's warning them against trying to do things on their own, in their flesh, because when they do it in their own work and their own power, here's what it produces, and he gives a list. Sexual immorality is one of those things.
Right.
I don't think you would say that that the context of Galatians 5 is that I decide to walk by the Spirit, and then that's just a decision that perpetuates the rest of my life.
No, it's a moment by moment.
It's a possibility of me still walking in the flesh. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, agreed.
What I mean by capable is that it is the moment we try to do it on our own power.
Failure. Every time.
Like you wouldn't say from Galatians 5, when you walk by the Spirit, you have the possibility of producing the fruit of the Spirit.
Nope, you absolutely do.
And that seems to be the opposite when he says the fruit of the flesh.
Yep.
So that's my point.
These are absolutes. So if you're walking by the Spirit, you will absolutely produce this fruit of the Spirit. Anytime you're trying to do it on your own power, you will absolutely produce the fruit of the flesh. What I think people miss is that I don't think people are cognizant. Okay, let me say it on the positive side first. I think that people who are walking by the Spirit are cognizant that they're walking by the Spirit because you have come to a place where you're like, I can't do this. I need God's work in me.
There's fruit.
Right. And then the result of that is, here's what the Holy Spirit's doing. I think on the flesh side, it's the flip. I don't think people are going, I want to walk by the flesh. I think what indicates that they're walking by the flesh is that we recognize the fruit first.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yep. Yeah.
So I think with the Spirit, we've come to the place, many of us in our lives, where we're like, man, I need Jesus to work in my life. I don't think we're seeing the fruit of the Spirit. Sometimes that's the case. Sometimes you're going, man, you look back over a 6-month period and you're like, God has changed me a lot. I'm clearly submitting to the Spirit right now.
Yeah.
But I think in a typical setting, I'm not saying this is the pattern. I'll pull it all the way back to me. My experience has been that when I have said, God, I want to follow you. I want to serve you faithfully. I want to walk faithfully with you. Let your Spirit work in me. When that has been the attitude of my heart, the inevitable result of that is I'm looking more like Jesus.
Yes.
I don't think, again, my experience, I don't think that I have ever been like, and I'm going to walk in the flesh today. I think what I have started to see is like, ooh, there are things in me that are not matching up with Christ. That must mean I'm walking by the flesh again. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah. And I think what's important to remember is like that list he gives for the flesh is not all sexual immorality stuff.
No.
Anger, rage, jealousy.
Yeah.
So like it's funny because he puts those in a list not as like a number one worst to like least worst. He just says them all in there. And like, I don't think we approach someone with anger or rage in the same perspective as we do with someone with sexual immorality, but Paul does. Culturally, we don't.
Culturally,
we don't.
Should.
Yeah.
Is what you're saying.
Well, no. Yes, but like, I don't mean the consequence is way different for
consequence,
sexual immorality,
jail time,
like,
all that stuff.
Or even just, that's what I was trying to just do in a fair because it's not like a legal thing, right?
Right.
The consequence is way worse than like, man, I got really angry today.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not different in terms of the heart to honor Jesus by walking by the Spirit or the heart to honor yourself by walking by the flesh. Obviously, I'm adding that to the text, but like, that's where I think people, I think this is the problem, is that we still, which is kind of what I've been digging at, I think we still gauge our sin on a spectrum. instead of saying, I'm either walking by the Spirit and honoring Jesus, or I'm walking by the flesh and I'm sinning.
Well, we tend to look at the cultural response.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I just pulled it up. So, you have in here sexual immorality, then you have impurity, then you have sensuality, you have idolatry, and we're going, oh, okay, sorcery. Okay, I'm not doing that. Enmity, strife. Strife is one of the things of the flesh, right? Jealousy, fits of anger, rivalries and dissensions and divisions. Those three all kind of seem similar. Envy, drunkenness, orgies, and things like these. So he didn't even complete the list.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so
He's like, hey, you guys know what you're doing.
Yeah.
So to your point, we do not treat orgies the same way as we do envy.
Yeah, you're exactly right.
Right. But
And so because there's a culturally different response, we tend to respond to it differently. And we look at guys like Michael Tait and we're like, oh man, I hate that.
Yes.
But we're not bothered by our envy.
that's what I think is what I'm digging at here.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to get him off the hook. What I'm saying is
100%.
the reason I think that a lot of people end up there or move that direction is because they view sin on a spectrum rather than, again, consequences of sin
Are
probably on a
different.
spectrum. Like,
But
we all grew up in this. We've spent so long hearing people say, work on your sin, stop sinning, work on your sin, stop sinning. And our focus has always been on the sin. When someone talks about Michael Tait, they're going to be like, people shouldn't molest kids. Yeah. Duh.
Yeah.
Like, but the fix isn't to say don't molest kids. The fix is to say put your faith in Jesus and then let the Spirit guide you so your life can honor Jesus. And when you find yourself in moments, okay, I'll say it like this: when you find yourself in moments of weakness, let's say men out there, you find yourself tempted to look at porn, or you find yourself tempted to engage in a relationship with another woman that's not your wife, even just like conversationally or emotionally, however the psychologists say that now. Like, when you find yourself in that moment, the goal is not to be strong.
Right.
The goal is to say,
That's a stupid goal.
goal is to say, God, I am incapable of fixing this crap in my life. Would you remind me of who you are, that you're better than this, that your value is better than this, and I want to walk by that. The fix is not to go, I'm not going to be that person.
Right.
And that's what I think what I'm trying to guard against is people thinking about the sin rather than thinking about the Savior. Like that's the difference.
Yeah.
And that's what it pisses me off about Christian culture, because we're so, like, I think all three of us are probably we were probably more pissed about things like Ravi than most other people, because for us, it was like, dude, we listened to him in person at Moody.
Met him.
You were still like in middle school, but like,
Yeah, that's right.
you met him.
Yeah.
Dang. Yeah, Ryan's more bold. I was like, that's some Indian dude. I'm not gonna talk to him. No, I'm just kidding. Ryan loved Ravi.
I did. Yeah.
So there's more of an emotional tension with that, right?
Yeah.
We're more pissed about that than anybody. But that's because of our connection with him, right? We're not more pissed about him
because of the nature of the sin.
That's what I'm trying to get at. And, and if we view sin on a spectrum like that as a Christian culture, what we'll end up with is more and more people engage in these things because they're going to try to be strong to not do it.
And what we grew up with was people saying avoid sexual sin.
Yeah.
And then in the very next lesson at youth on Wednesday night saying, but you're always going to struggle with anger. You're always going to struggle with envy.
Right.
So what they've done is they've categorized sins to the things that we need to avoid and the sins that we can't avoid, which is not biblically true.
Not at all.
And so what we do is we have people go, oh yeah, the stuff that I struggle with isn't nearly as bad as Tait's. And to Micah's point, and it's the right point, you're either walking by the Spirit and producing the fruit then of the Spirit, or you're walking by the flesh and producing the fruit of the flesh. There's not middle ground.
No.
And it's a moment by moment thing. You might say, yesterday I walked by the flesh, and the choices you made yesterday may have might have lifelong consequences in your life, or might have consequences for the next day and then be done.
Yeah.
But the point isn't the length of the consequence or the social impact it has. The point is yesterday you didn't honor Jesus.
Yeah.
And so it's one of these things that like the aim has to be Christ.
Yeah,
I had a conversation with somebody recently, and they were saying, how do we talk to, I've already alluded to this in the podcast, but how do we talk to our young sons about honoring the Lord sexually and not getting addicted to porn and blah, blah, blah. And I said what we've already said here. It's not about sin avoidance. It's about adhering to Christ. Like, hold to Jesus, know Jesus, walk with Jesus. And as you're doing that, those things are avoided. I will tell you this, 100%. And this is you tempering my statement earlier, and I appreciate that. But, and I don't think you'll have any reason to temper this statement, but if you do, jump on it. I will tell you this, no one who is in this moment walking faithfully with Jesus is also molesting boys backstage.
Yes.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yes.
No one's doing that.
No one.
100% agree.
And so if you're molesting boys backstage, you are not walking with Jesus.
Right.
Mm-mm.
Now, tomorrow you might go, oh man, I need to serve the Lord today and stuff. But like and to your point, we can't say, well, he did it for 10 years, he did it 20 years, he did it for 30 years, he did it a year. There isn't a time frame that indicates to us whether or not he was really a follower of Christ.
Right.
I will say I find it difficult to believe you can be a follower of Christ
Absolutely.
and molest boys
Mhm.
Agreed.
or kids, period. Or like, I find it difficult to believe you can be part of 3 or 4 different ministries and have affairs in every single ministry until you get run off from that ministry and then have another one and still be a believer. I find it difficult.
I'm glad that he's no longer the interim pastor at that church down the road.
But
from us.
but you know what it makes me feel like? So I feel a little bit, and hear me say that. This is how I feel. I'm not trying to make a biblical case about it.
Yeah.
But these phony baloney pastors on TBN, or like a guy like Joel Osteen who says, I don't want to talk about sin, and I don't want to talk about the blood of Jesus, and I don't want to do this, who are lining their pockets, and buying their 4th jet, like who's that guy that's like, I've bought my 4th jet. And
That's the dude in San Antonio.
Yeah. Just
Kenneth Copeland.
Yeah. And just ridiculous, right? And so he is using ministry as a means to perpetrate his sin, his greed, right? That's what he's using ministry for. And he's using the gullible people to do that. And I have a hard time not putting Michael Tait in the same category.
I just thought of something else.
Yeah.
We perpetuate that by elevating, just like as Christians, by elevating this desire for, how do I say this? Like Christian things that are entertainment enjoyable. So like we want to sweep the sexual sin of Robert What's-His-Face from Gateway Church under the rug because we see how good the church is doing, quote unquote, AKA the church is like a lot more people are coming.
Yeah.
And so this is the phrase, which is from a super old book, written for the the financial people from Italy back in the day, like way back in the day. The ends justify the means. That's their perspective. We're going to sweep this under the rug because what's more important to us than honoring Jesus is this quote unquote this ministry.
Yeah.
So that's why I think the problem is that we as a culture perpetuate that. Like, why do people still go to those churches?
Yeah.
Like that's what
ridiculous.
you're doing, right? So that's where I think, funny enough, I think I'm 100% with you on that. I think we all agree. Like, I might even feel more intensely on that than you guys do, just because I'm a little bit more of a butthole. But like, I'm like, wait, all these people going to these churches? You probably don't know Jesus either, because if you did, you would be pissed.
Yeah. You'd be so outraged. You wouldn't be able to walk through the door without getting sick to your stomach.
And my point is, you wouldn't be pissed about the sin. You'd be pissed about the Savior being defamed.
Yep.
Exactly.
That's what I'm after. That's what makes me mad, is that Christians are, it's too low of a view, in your words, to say I'm worried about the sin.
Yeah.
And people are going to be like, wait, you're not worried about the sin? That's not what I said. What I said is Jesus is more important than the sin.
No. Well, I think you're not worried about the sin.
I'm not worried about the sin.
Not ultimately, right?
Not that I'm saying I'm not worried about sin in my life. What I'm saying is like, I don't fix sin by worrying about the sin.
No, it's, and if your perspective, back to your point, Micah, earlier, if your perspective is you need to be worried about this sin, what you're naturally going to do with a person who's like that, you should be really worried about what Michael Tait did. If that's your spectrum, then down the list, there are things you shouldn't be as worried about.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And you're like, oh yeah, but that's pretty normal. Most people, and the number of times I've had conversations with people like that, they're like, well, that's just normal.
He just gets a little bit drunk every night.
Yeah. And you're like, no, that's not normal. That's dishonoring Jesus.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the moment we make it about self rather than make it about Jesus, then you get to decide that your sin's not so
That's a great point.
important.
It's a great point.
Here's the other thing. I firmly believe this about the three of us. I don't feel this way, and I don't think you guys feel this way either.
We do.
I have, I don't have any ego attached to the 456.
Oh, we definitely don't. No.
So when we were 20 people, or now, the other day we had like 550, 600 people, that to me doesn't actually make any difference for me on it. it doesn't change how I teach. It doesn't change how I prep. It doesn't change how I think. I don't like myself more because I've been successful. Now, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
I'm snickering because it's like,
well, we were told how unsuccessful we were for so many years.
right.
I recently,
I just don't know how to measure success in terms of those things.
no, you can't. And so like if you're sitting down with a couple of people and walking them through the scripture and helping them to know the Lord, then awesome, right? Like that's beauty, that's success, right? But from a cultural perspective, for 10 years, people were like, man, like how many times did we have people say, well, you're not a real church because you don't actually meet on Sunday mornings. You're not a real church because you don't have a building or whatever. And we're like, okay, whatever. And so like people have asked me multiple times, are you just amazed by the new building? And I'm like, I'm really glad I'm not preaching 4 times anymore. I'm really glad we have the opportunity to have more space. I'm really glad that we have the opportunity we have more freedom. We were talking about this, Micah. We have more freedom in the length of our services and what we want to do.
Yeah.
Like,
it's paid for.
Yeah. I love those things, but those things don't shape what I do as a follower of Jesus.
What you're saying is if the building went away tomorrow, we'd still continue to do
yes.
it.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think what some people do is to your point earlier, is they take so much pride in the ministry that they're like, oh, I got to hide this sin to preserve the ministry.
I think that's what makes me mad is that's called ministry.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So they're not actually interested in Jesus. Yeah.
No, because ministry can't be gauged in that term of success standard. Like you, okay, for me, you mentioned some stuff earlier. For success is like, man, hearing about these middle school kids who come back from camp who are like, here's all the things I learned about Jesus this week. I told you guys Grayson, first thing he said when he walked in the door, like the preaching was so much more amazing this year than last year. Like my 8th grader, first thing he says about camp is the preaching. Like
exactly.
As a parent, well, obviously he already knows Jesus. That's the ultimate success for me. But like now, is like as he's growing, like that's are there going to be things that Grayson is going to deal with, sin stuff? Yeah, probably so. But my heart is to continue to point him towards like that's success. Like I don't care how many people come to the church in that regards. Now I will say this: what I do love is that there's a group of people who are, because we're not trying to like sugarcoat anything, right?
No.
Right.
We're going to teach the scripture. We're going to commit ourselves to Jesus. We're going to push people that direction, and we're happy for people to come along in that journey. If they don't want to come, cool. But what's cool is to me is that people are saying, I'm ready for something authentic. And I'm ready to move that direction with people who are going to lead me that way.
Yeah.
We will continue to lead people that direction no matter how many people come. If the church continues to grow a number of people, we will continue to lead that direction. If the church shrinks back down to 20 people, we will continue to lead that direction. We will not stop leading that direction.
Right.
I think that's, to answer the initial question you didn't know how to ask earlier, I think for us 3, that's the, not use the word guard, but that's what... Yeah, that's fine. I think that's what
Jesus. Like our pursuit is Jesus. And the inevitable, like you don't need, okay, let's go back. You don't need to guard yourself if your pursuit is Jesus.
No, not at all.
No.
That's my first thought is generally like when people, and I understand the heart of people asking the question for sure. Like, how do you guys, because they see so much failure, right? They see so many people living double lives or living a lie or however you want to phrase that, right? And then they look at us and they know us and they trust us and they know that's not our heart at all. And they know we're honoring the Lord with our marriages, with our ministry, with parenting and things like that. And so they're like, well, it happened to him. I guess it could happen to anybody. Like, how are you guys defending against it? I know where the heart comes from, but that's my very first thought is just like, I don't even think about having to guard against it. I'm focused on Christ.
No. We would say like, what is it? Paul says like, avoid the things that you used to do. Is it Colossians? I don't know. But like we would say like, hey, there's going to be some wisdom in how we live our lives.
Yeah.
We're not gonna counsel with women one-on-one, right? In a closed, like there's some wisdom things where you're like,
absolutely,
I'm not gonna put myself in a scenario that's if you want to use the word guard, that's fine for that. You're like, I'm gonna be wise about this situation. But what you're saying is we're not working every morning. We're not waking up and going,
how am I going to fight this?
Like, God, please help me fight this sin today. That's the wrong way.
And the reason why we are, to use that same language, putting a guarding in those situations, because we have a heart for Christ, because we know and we understand the opportunity and the responsibility we have as ministers, and we understand that like those things happen, and so we're going to be wise because of our heart for Christ, not because of a yearning desire to constantly go over these things and we got or go like leap into temptation and we have to build a wall so fast before we can make the leap. Like, no, our heart's for Jesus, and so we're going to put these safeguards or whatever into place because our hearts for Christ.
And then the positive side, I think the more you do life with people who also love Jesus and you all walk together in
Mhm.
Jesus and you're learning and you're growing together, what that's actually doing is probably moving you farther away from the dependency on self. You're going to be, the conversation a second ago about the flesh and the spirit.
Yeah.
You're probably going to be less likely to find yourself in situations where you're trying to do it on your own power in the flesh.
Yeah.
If you're doing life with a group of people who are all going that direction,
Yeah,
you're
absolutely.
a lot less likely, right?
Yeah.
So again, I don't think that means like if I start doing life with a group of people who love Jesus, I'm good.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's this continual
Yeah.
pursuit of like, I want to walk with the Spirit. I want to honor Jesus with my life. And
Yeah.
the more you do that, I actually think I don't know if it was MacArthur or Piper, one of those funny reform guys, that said something like one of the signs of your growth is as you see yourself sinning less and less, like that there's the sin becomes less a part of your life. I think I kind of like that, because hopefully the implication is that you are walking by the Spirit more and more.
Yeah.
That you see
Yeah.
the fruits of the flesh less.
Yeah. Agreed.
There's a whole lot more I
Mhm.
think to talk about in that regards. But I mean, at the end of the day, like, we're probably more pissed about this kind of stuff than ever, because
Mhm.
Yeah.
even though we're not in the same camp as Michael Tait, like some of these other examples, like we're doing ministry.
Yeah.
And these are people that are wrecking the name of Jesus.
Yep.
For the goal of their own name. It's all reputation stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And honestly,
very
that's
self-centered
what
stuff.
brings the dude from Hillsong in New York.
Yeah.
That one I don't know any details about it. That
I don't know
one
about you,
seems
yeah.
like that was handled a little bit better, maybe.
Seemingly so, yeah.
Again, I feel the tension you feel, Ryan, like
Yeah.
about those situations, but I'll probably just tell him you're an arrogant. Let's just say he's a believer. I'd be like, you're an arrogant prick who
Mhm.
just is concerned about you.
Yeah.
That's what it is in those
Absolutely.
situations.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and honestly, like, this guy, he's saying this here too in this article, but he's saying that Michael Tait deserves to go to jail.
100%.
Yeah.
And on the people who are like, well, what
do you mean, well?
We're all sinners, and we're just like, no, screw that.
Well,
Like,
at what point does that become real? Well, he like chopped some kids' heads off while he was on the road and
yeah,
killed them
where's-
and buried them in the desert. Hey, we all do bad stuff.
so
Yeah.
apparently, this guy was saying too that that whenever you traveled with the Newsboys, you had to sign an NDA, because occasionally Tait would bring his boyfriend on the tour bus too.
They I said it. I said it. They freaking knew.
Yep.
So
Mm.
How old was his boyfriend?
didn't say.
Yeah.
Probably young enough that he needs to go to jail. That Tait needs to go to jail.
Yeah. There was thoughts that I have, speculative thoughts, 100%. Like, I didn't see it anywhere, but I thought that some of the whole band was knew that stuff was going to come to light. So they made a plan. Hey, you leave early so that when this does come to light, we can kind of keep our own thing and you can do your own thing. I know that's highly speculative, but like just the line of events that happened.
If that's true, that there's really an NDA and they knew about that, then I don't know how you don't speculate that.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
It's all disgusting.
It is, dude. And it's just,
Okay, ready? Let me clean up. I just figured out how to clean up all that stuff from earlier.
Go.
We are on our own power, in our own flesh, disgusting people. Like the fruit of the flesh is these things, right? When we rely on that, what else is there going to produce? Like, what else is it going to produce? Is that so?
Yeah.
I think it's for someone to say I'm going to fight this sin is a bunch of disgusting, sinful people saying I'm not going to be what I am producing, instead of saying, oh, I said this at camp last week, which probably pissed the people off who didn't like me saying stupid. I said, you sucked before Jesus. Why do you think you're not going to suck now on your own power, right? Like you weren't able to attain righteousness on your own before Jesus. Why do you think you're going to attain righteousness on your own now?
Yeah.
Why is it that you who begun by the Spirit are now trying to be perfected by the works of the flesh? That's exactly what Paul's saying. Like,
exactly.
someone who sucks trying to suck less is still going to suck.
Still gonna suck. Yeah.
Or you could go, I've always sucked. I've been made new in Christ. I don't have to suck anymore. All I have to do is take the hand of the Spirit and say, let me walk with you.
Mm-hmm.
And then you produce the fruit of the Spirit. And
Exactly.
you have
Yeah.
a heart to honor Jesus. And anyways,
Sounds pretty simple, Micah.
ready? Simpler view is stop sucking. No, I'm just kidding. joking. I think it's literally a simpler view of this is say your heart on Jesus and walk by the Spirit.
Yep.
Yeah. It's that simple, huh?
It
It
is.
legitimately is.
It is.
Yeah.
I really think that I know this is super long. Sorry, this is episode, but like a lot of the perpetuated sin in people's lives is because they're under a teaching that keeps telling them to be better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, law.
Yep. Yeah, we had a lot of talks about that at camp. A lot of talks about it. And me and Kyle specifically about the subtlety of language. Even like there are people that my leaning would be like they believe rightly of the things of the gospel, but because of the culture that they're in, there's little things in their language. I saw, we've heard this language before of like I think we've even had a whole podcast about it before, where like people say like take this desire that you have for God, be sure to turn it into routine, and once you do it enough, then you'll be joyous in it, right? So like sometimes I see the heart behind that of like they want you to enjoy reading the scripture and enjoy all these things, but you're making it about the routine and you're making it about the practice and you're making all these things instead of making it about the heart, right? And so like the subtlety in the language, now what you've done is you've shaped a perspective of workspace, try harder, do better mentality. Once I do better, then I'll find joy in the Lord, as opposed to because I find joy in the Lord, now I walk in Him and I live out these things, right?
Yep.
So it's reversing the perspective, and you don't think about it. You're just spitting out things. Oh goodness. And no joke. I didn't even think about it being June. Didn't even cross my mind. But yeah, there's going to be hundreds of those. Yeah, if not way more.
Well, at least Gabe Bolts is not on his own anymore.
Yeah. So anyway, I don't remember anyway, we don't need to dive into it. We've already run long, but any other thoughts? We've said a simpler perspective. We said believe in Jesus and walk by the Spirit.
Yep.
Trust in Jesus, walk by the Spirit. Yeah. Absolutely. This is going to be a heavy topic in Christian culture for a while. I mean, it has been a heavy topic, but now specifically with Michael Tait, and
it'll come out again next year. There'll be another asshole next year.
Mm-hmm. So, like for you guys, we'd love to hear. For you guys watching and listening, we'd love to hear your thoughts. We'd love to hear if there was the allegations or statements or facts or stuff that we didn't mention or cover, like that was more eye-opening for you, send them to us. We'd like to.
Please. I want to know more about this.
Yeah, exactly. Like we'll
and stop playing Newsboys on your Spotify set list.
There you go. Yeah, especially now with summer camp season, right?
Classic
unless it's like 90s and early,
exactly,
like 90s.
Just play play Shine the Hits, and that's just the Peter Furler and Phil Joel era.
Watch, someone will send us some articles about how bad that song was.
I know, right? Now we said that. But we'd love to hear you guys' thoughts. And we also know there's a lot of like personal testimonies that people have because of the churches they grew up in. It may not have been as big of an impact, like we said earlier, as Michael Tait, but other pastors that are just acting terribly and the things that go with that. And so if that's you and you have a story of personal growth and coming to know Christ in the midst of that hurt, like we'd love to hear you guys' story. We'd love to hear y'all. Or if you have questions that kind of branch off of this, again, just reach out to us. All down in the show notes below, you'll see that our Instagram and our Facebook page. You can search Simpler Pod and you'll be able to find us on there. Same thing with YouTube. Just search Simpler Pod, all one word, and you'll be able to find our channel on there. If you don't normally use YouTube, we'd love for you to go over there and just hit subscribe. That'll boost up the subscriber count. We're trying to get to over 1,000. We've still got a little ways to go, but we would like to be able to, once we get over that number, we'd be able to see some finances come in, see the channel become monetized so that this podcast become more self-sustaining from a financial standpoint. As well in the show notes below, you're going to see links to Micah's ministry, to Eagle's Wings ministry, to Simpler Bible, to all these different areas where you can get plugged in, where you can just see more of what's going on in our lives and the things that we discuss here. May it be about Micah on the road, may it be about Simpler Bible, or even the 456 Church. Just all those links are down below. Get involved where you want to get involved. Reach out where you can. Huge thank you to Stephen, as always, here at the God and Audio. And as always, keep Christ as core. What could be simpler than that? We will catch y'all next week. Bye.